It's Palm Sunday, the beginning of what we call Holy Week or Easter Week, the highlight of the church's year. In recent times, one of my jobs in the lead up to Palm Sunday has been cutting palm branches to decorate the church. There won't be a Palm Sunday service here this year though. And instead of spending my time clambering around in a palm tree, I've spent the week learning how to record a sermon by video instead. Even so, let's reflect for a few moments on the significance of this day. In early March 1993, I was sitting in a law classroom at the University of Melbourne on the first day of classes. I had arrived early for the class, eager to make a good first impression. As I sat and arranged myself, a man moved about in silence, tidying the room and cleaning the blackboard. His appearance was distinctive. He had a bushy, unkempt moustache and hadn't shaved for a couple of days at least. He wore a tattered t-shirt, short shorts with a map of the world on them, and thongs. I sat there thinking it strange that the university cleaning company didn't present a more professional image, when suddenly he turned around and exclaimed, "Let's begin." The man I had mistaken for a shabby cleaner was in fact a brilliant professor of law and one of the most engaging teachers I had the privilege to sit under at university. Looking down on him on the basis of a snobby and superficial first impression, I had failed to recognise the extraordinary person standing before me. We can make the same mistake with Jesus. The name Palm Sunday recalls what is sometimes called the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. All four Gospels, the New Testament biographies of Jesus, record this event. We'll reflect a little on how Matthew chapter 21 presents it. In Matthew, this is Jesus' first and last visit to Jerusalem, but he has been explicitly headed there since chapter 16, and his entrance into the city begins the climactic week of the story. There are two things to notice about this scene. First is the dramatic welcome of the crowd, from which we get the name Palm Sunday, although in fact it is John's Gospel who tells us that the branches were palm branches. Anyway, we read from verse 8. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heaven." The identity of Jesus has been something of a secret up to this point. Now, as he rides into Jerusalem, a great crowd of Galilean pilgrims walking along and lining the way in front and behind acclaim him as the long-awaited Messiah, the Son of David, come to establish his rule. The entrance scene is like a triumphant royal victory parade. The crowd is right to hail Jesus as king, but there is something else to notice. This conquering king rides a donkey. This is the only time we read about Jesus riding, so there is something pointed about his action. And the first part of the chapter shows the careful preparations for this moment. Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." Then we hear the point of this careful preparation. This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Say to daughter Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey. The point of Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, in fulfillment of a prophecy from centuries earlier, is to show that he is indeed the king, the gentle king, who will rule in humble service and establish his claim to the throne on the cross, not the battlefield. And this astonishing thought is captured in the words of the hymn. Ride on in majesty, in lowly pomp, ride on to die. We believe that Jesus will come again in glory to establish his kingdom. The path that leads to glory passes through humble service and suffering. That was true for Jesus, and it is true for those who follow him. During this pandemic, with all its temptations to selfishness, it is good to remember how we are called to follow in Jesus' footsteps. In Philippians chapter 2, Paul urges us to imitate Jesus, the humble, suffering servant, in this way. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. After the adulation of the pilgrims on the road, the people of Jerusalem are more circumspect as they ask, who is this? The different responses, one welcoming Jesus as king, the other questioning and ultimately condemning him, leave us with the question of our own response. The biggest question to answer during the coronavirus pandemic is not, do we have enough toilet paper and tinned food? Or, how long will the restrictions last? Or, should I get tested? Or even, will we die? The biggest question to answer in this time of pandemic, because it is the biggest question in life and in death, is this: how will you receive the coming King? Will you despise his humble appearance? That would be a terrible mistake. The last book of the Bible, Revelation, tells us that when Jesus comes again, he will come for judgment, and he will ride again, not on a donkey, but on a white horse, riding to war. Listen to these words from Revelation chapter 19. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and wages war. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but he himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. The armies of heaven were following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has this name written: King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Do not despise the humble appearance of his first coming. Will you welcome him with shallow enthusiasm and then abandon him like the crowds? That is no better. Or will you receive him as the servant king, accept his humble service on your behalf, and follow in his footsteps? That is the question of Palm Sunday. How will you receive the coming King?